On this episode of ITG, it's time to recap a victory against Albany. The Mountaineers get their first win of the season. We'll break it all down. We'll catch up with our buddy Big Daddy in the process as well, too. All that and more on this edition of ITG.
You are now watching Believe.
ITG.
Special guest, Sean Big Daddy Mariner.
Handsome, tubby man of gold.
Mac and cheese, top 3 food for me all time.
Here with your gnarly news at noon, I'm Sean Mariner.
You've never met a mac and cheese slut like me.
You are In the Gun.
Because once you enter this family, there's no getting out.
In the Gun, episode 187 of your new favorite WVU football podcast. I'm Wes Euler with the best teammates in the business. We got the beer truck, Big O, Owen Schmidt, and the signal caller, fresh from the sidelines, Jed Drenning. And, of course, you already know this episode of ITG brought to you in part by our friends at BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Every stat, every matchup, live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. It's all at BetOnline. If you think you know your stuff, you can get in on a $200,000 mega contest. Pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200K. And when the games are over, you can head to their online casino, get in on a game of blackjack, poker, or over 150 slot games. So head to the website today to get in on the action. It's all at BetOnline. The game starts here. And gentlemen, the Mountaineers get their victory against Albany, their first win of the season. NFL games starting this past week as well, too. I had a good time down in Atlanta. I think I've told you guys this before, but man, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, I've been pretty spoiled to be at a few of these NFL stadiums now. I've been to SoFi in LA. It's amazing. I've been to Allegiant Stadium in Vegas. It's like Darth Vader's helmet. But Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, man, just, I don't know what it is. If it's the cool roof that opens and closes, if it's just the aesthetic of the thing, if it's the fact that they have by far the best food of any stadium in the league, or the fact that, you know, I think this is the 3rd straight year I've been there with the Steelers, and the Steelers have won all 3 times. It was a great trip, but especially because we got to see the debut of our guys, Zach and Beanie. Zach playing every single snap, starting at center for the Steelers. Beanie playing 59% of the snaps there in the nickel corner, the slot corner role, which I thought was a pretty solid number for his first go at it, especially when he missed some time recently with an injury. And those guys, I think, getting some love here in the aftermath in the last 24, 48 hours or so. Zach Frazier was Pro Football Focus's 9th best run blocked grade center and their 2nd best pass pro center from week 1. That's all in his first game in the NFL. That's all still within well under a year since he broke his leg. Jed, Big O, if that's the starting point for Zach Frazier and for Beanie as well, too, I think those guys are going to do just fine on Sundays.
Absolutely. I mean, 100%. Zach looked pretty polished, if I wouldn't say so myself, but anytime you can get out on the field, it's the first real game, right? A lot of emotions, I can only imagine, especially for Zach, just because of, and same for Beanie too, not being, being an undrafted guy, now he's playing that role. And then for Zach, just coming off of such a momentous recovery from a terrible injury last year, I can only imagine the emotion those guys were feeling.
That's a good way of putting that, Owen. And, early on, I kept saying, all right, I'm going to blame Justin Fields for pulling out too early on these snaps, both those miscues on those exchanges, because it kind of did look to me like maybe he was knowing that. But what a perfect type of game. First of all, it was very on brand for the Steelers. But what a perfect game for a slobber knocker like Zach Frazier and a defensive stalwart like Beanie Bishop. And 18, it sounds like I posted on Twitter, it sounds like a score from a beer softball league or something. It's no touchdown. The Steelers were the only team in the AFC North to not score a touchdown, but also the only team to win. And you have your underrated, pennies on the dollar quarterback who's supposed to be your backup outplaying their $180 million quarterback in Kirk Cousins. But Zach right there at the point of attack, just paving the way. Beanie making plays in the second half. And of course, I saw Doug back at the Penn State game. Doug was in the locker room, and I told him, dude, I could not be happier for you. Look, we knew you were going to land somewhere when it didn't work out in Minnesota, but when I found out it was also Pittsburgh, so he was pretty fired up as well. So we got 3 of those Mountaineers from last year's team up there, and great start for them. They're 1-0. They're first in the division, just 1 week at a time. Let's see where this goes for Zach, Beanie, and Doug.
Yeah, gonna be exciting for sure, and we'll have to have the little update here on our guys as we roll along every single week. But obviously, this is the Albany Recap episode. It's a big week. It's Brawl Week. Yes, it's time to play those guys, the stinking Pitt Panthers. We're gonna make that trip up 79 and invade Acrisure Stadium once again. But before we get to any and all of that, we got to talk about this win over the Great Danes. We got to catch up with our buddy Sean Big Daddy Mariner, get some stories about these new lights, the new light show there at Milan Puskar Stadium at Mountaineer Field that really had everybody excited on Saturday night. So plenty to get to. This episode of ITG also brought to you in part by our friends at Toothman Ford. Big shout out to our guy, JR, and everyone there at Team Toothman. We all know cars cost less in Grafton. We're going to take a break. We'll recap that win over the Great Danes on the other side. You are in the gun.
For nearly 20 years, Fortis has been the nation's leader in providing guaranteed roof performance programs for commercial buildings. Fortis offers roof performance solutions that feature extensive initial and ongoing reconditioning for commercial buildings as an alternative to traditional replacement, with long-term performance guarantees that are backed by global leader Lloyd's of London. Fortis offers a comprehensive range of roof performance management programs that provide financial security, extend the life of our customers' roofs, and make a significant impact on ROI. Fortis is currently improving performance and increasing ROI for customers at more than 4,800 locations, with more than 140 million square feet protected, including many Fortune 500 companies that have turned to Fortis to save money, gain financial certainty, and extend the life of their existing roofs. Fortis has helped customers save more than $520 million in capital roof replacement costs for an average ROI of over 250%. To learn more, visit fortis.us.com. Fortis, roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed.
Nobody supports the blue and gold Mountaineers like Toothman Ford. With over 20 NIL deals and counting, Toothman Ford continues to rally behind our student athletes. And it's time we rally and support the dealer that supports the Mountaineers. Not only does Toothman Ford offer the best prices in the state on pre-owned, their never over MSRP campaign on new Fords guaranteed to save you thousands. Drive with pride all season long, knowing you're supporting the dealer that fuels our Mountaineers. Toothman Ford, where cars cost less, in Grafton and at toothmanford.com.
Back in the gun here as we roll along. It's time to recap this win over the Great Danes. Mountaineers win 49-14. It was comfortable, and then it got tight for a few minutes, and then it was comfortable again as the Mountaineers get their first victory of the season. Jed, as we normally do here, right? Some good, some bad, some ugly, everything in between. Tell me where you want to start, Signal Caller.
Well, let's start with this. We talked about in the preview 5 things that we'd like to see happen statistically. So let's see how we measured up for those 5 things. We said if we do these 5 things, or most of them, the score will take care of itself. And sure enough, we said, okay, first of all, from an efficiency standpoint, Garrett, we want him over 60%. He did that in spades, 74%, while still taking some shots downfield. It wasn't like he was dinking and dunking to get that 74%. He earned it. So great job there. Garrett's yards per attempt, that bang for the buck metric that we always talk about. Anytime you get 10 yards or higher, you are tough to beat offensively. We got 10.3. We were after 10. That's the number we tossed out there before the game. We wanted at least 10 as a harbinger of great things to come. 10.3. Here's a fun one. We said if we can get over 6.0 yards per carry, okay, that means the ground game's humming. Unlike what it did against Penn State, guys, we averaged 9.5 yards per carry. Get this. Give it some thought for just a second. You want to take a guess the last time we had a game where we averaged more than 9.5? Wesley, what say you?
The Tavon Austin game against Oklahoma.
Ching, bingo, you got it. 9.7. 2012, 12 years ago, the Tavon Austin Oklahoma game. Great job, Wesley Euler. That's why it's Wesley Valen Euler, WVU. Okay, then on the defensive side, we said, okay, from a transition down standpoint, if you want to combine third and fourth down, let's get them off the field. That means, in a perfect world, hold them into the low 30th percentile, somewhere in the low 30s. We didn't do that. 43%. Third down, they were 44%. Fourth down, they were 30%. Combine that, it's over 40%. We wanted to force 3 turnovers. The turnover well has been very dry, continues to be dry. So through 2 games, we had but 1 takeaway. We had none against the Albany Great Danes. So when you look at those 5 metrics that we singled out, we hit 3 of them, all 3 on the offensive side. We'll get into some of the bad on the offensive side too, but digging deeper into what you saw defensively. Okay, there was, as you touched on, Wes, it was close and then it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't as if the game felt in doubt. You're just like, oh no, now we're going to have to struggle more to win by 3 touchdowns than we were. And there were 2 critical points. I thought we discussed this in the post game, and we decided it was one of a couple things. It was either the 4th and goal stop was a critical point, but also to me, the offense answering with the 2-minute touchdown drive before the half was a critical juncture, because that would have been, if the offense didn't score there, that would have been 3 straight possessions in which the offense didn't score in a 1-possession game. You're not feeling so good going into the half. So the fact that the offense continued to hum and made it 28-14 at the half, and you can go ahead and take care of your problems. And of course, we pitched a shutout in the second half defensively. But the issue was, once again, we forced Albany off schedule. We knocked them way off script. We had 9 TFLs, forced them into a lot of 3rd and longs. But guys, as you saw, they converted a 3rd and 16 in the first quarter. They converted a 3rd and 16 in the second quarter. They converted a 3rd and 9 late in the second quarter to keep the ball and run out the clock. And then in the also in the second quarter, a 3rd and 17. So they had 4 3rd and longs, 3 of them 3rd and 16 or longer. Now, again, when you go back and watch the tape, it truly was a game not of inches but of whiskers, Owen. I mean, first of all, hats off to that Burkett kid. I mean, that kid was the player of the year in Wisconsin. He was on Scully at Wisconsin, played for the Badgers a little bit before transferring out. He's a high-end player that's going to win a lot of games for these guys. I couldn't have more respect than I do for him after watching that tape. He faced the bullets now. He stood tall and faced the fire, and I honestly, a handful of those throws, I don't even know how he got them off, because he was getting whacked. His hand was getting moved. He was very impressive to me in the pocket, standing tall. But we didn't make the plays on the back end. We can get into the host of reasons that happened. Yes, we wanted to stay basic. Yes, we wanted to stay vanilla. No, we didn't want to show Pitt anything. But it'd be nice to be able to do that and not allow these 3rd and long conversions, shuffle them off the field. I mean, this is what we fell prey to. That's why we ran 58 offensive snaps. That's why the 2s and 3s didn't get in as much as we did. Guys, we only had 9 possessions because we defensively struggled to get them off the field. They kept hitting the long ball on us. Now, I would argue 7 McGee, their receiver, might be better than anything we see against Pitt, the kid that came from Oregon and went to Jackson State. But they had 4 kids making plays. It wasn't just 7 McGee. So that's the discussion that we're going to get into. And then we can talk about some of the shortcomings on the offensive side. And I'll give you some perspective on the offense's quote-unquote struggles on 3rd down. It might not be quite what you think it is when you look at it big picture. But Owen, what are your initial thoughts on everything that played out in the 49-14 win against Albany?
It was nice to kind of get off to a decent start, you know what I mean? But then we kind of had some mess ups. Looked like we were out of position a little bit on defense on the back end. That one the first rushing touchdown they had, we kind of just gave it up. I don't know if we were in, I didn't really go back and watch the film, but I don't know if we slanted differently or did something up front to just gash us right up the middle there. But overall, you know, now I'm going to talk more about a little bit offense. It was nice to see we had a plethora of playmakers score, right? It wasn't just a one-sided deal.
Yeah. That one?
Thought we did well. Defensively, you know, our secondary just continues to struggle a little bit, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said what you said to start with. When you talk about being out of position defensively, so much of this is, yeah, a lot of it's on the back end, as you talked about, but some of it's also at the second level when you involve those linebackers. I mean, we're a very zone heavy team. We played probably more man than we normally would against Albany, but we're a zone heavy team. That's kind of what we are. That's our identity defensively. And then what we'll do is trick things up and send a guy you don't see coming and try and out numbers. We're going to send a fourth guy. You're not sure who the fourth guy is going to be from a pressure configuration, but think of it like this: big picture, guys. Defensively in a football field, the field's 53 and a third yards wide. Forget before you get vertical. Just talk horizontally, talk width. That's a lot of space to cover. So it is a very precise science trying to do so. There are 5 zones in space that you have to cover sideline to sideline. Now, different people have different names for them, but there's some version of the flat to both sides. There's some version of a curl to both sides. In the middle, you got the hook area. I always call it the pit. But that's 5 zone areas that have to be covered. And what that means is the underneath defenders have to precisely cover those areas because there is so much space to try and cover. They have landmarks to hit. And if you're only a couple, even feet, forget yards, if you're only a couple feet off your landmark, that can really change what the quarterback's seeing. Trust me when I say this. When a quarterback's looking at a defender who's off his landmark, what looks like what's 2 feet off your mark. Oh, and when you're in the pocket, it looks like 8 feet. It looks like a guy's wide open just because you're anticipating the way things look. You're not seeing them almost as they are with a ball in your hand. You're seeing them as they will be in a second. So if you see a defender 2 feet out of position, but it's his momentum shifting him that way, and you got a crossing route coming behind, he looks wide open to you. So you have to be incredibly precise. And I'm not so sure our second level players did that. And then you get into the problems that you encountered on the back end. I mean, sometimes, like, here's the big thing that struck me. Again, when I watch tape, I take notes, and then I go back and I'm saying, okay, am I crazy? Am I seeing things? Let me try and find some stuff that will support what I just looked at. And one of the things that I kept noticing was Albany winning more 50-50 balls than they lost. And sure enough, when you dive into the metrics, they threw 8 what's called contested catches or contested throws. They put 8 balls in the air that were going to be contested by a defender, or at least had a chance to be. Of those 8, their receivers made 6 contested catches. Now, in an ideal circumstance, you want to hold the opposition under 50%, ideally well under 50%. And that's against a Big 12 team. You sure don't want to be allowing them to catch 75% of their contested throws. And that's unfortunately what we did. And that's what led to so many big plays. Now, there were times they watched the Penn State tape, right? So there were times they max protected. There were times they didn't. They were trying to learn from what they saw Penn State do against us. And it was a well-coached team, Albany was. And they took some shots, but we got to make more plays on the ball. When you break down the DBs, getting into some of the numbers, through 2 games so far, the big bugaboo and shortcoming we had 2 years ago was a lack of passes defended. Now, remember, passes defended is a statistic that's a combination of interceptions and pass breakups. So basically, any play you make on the ball in the air is a pass defended. Well, that's the big impact Beanie had. He led the nation in passes defended by a wide margin, and he almost single-handedly changed that part of our defense. He took us up to 4.9 passes defended per game. Well, guys, we're back down to 2.5 passes defended per game through 2 games. And these are 2 teams that, especially this week, threw the football on us some. So you had some opportunities to make some plays with the ball in the air, and you didn't do it. What I want to see, for instance, Aiden Garnes and Garnett Hollis. Garnett Hollis, he's been targeted 9 times and given up 5 catches for 132 yards. That's 56%. Aiden Garnes, 46% for 101 yards. That's the completion percentage when they're targeting these guys. But let's lend this thing some perspective. Beanie was targeted 88 times, the second most of all Big 12 defenders. That's the nature of playing that position, especially when you're a boundary corner like Garnett Hollis and Beanie was. Beanie allowed 56% to be completed. He just made plays on the football. One of the things that Garnett Hollis consistently did at Northwestern is force incompletions. He was among the best in the Big 12 at forcing incompletions and swatting the ball to the ground with it in flight. He doesn't have one yet. Neither does Aiden Garnes. And that's something that both of those guys did and did very well at their last stop. So unlike maybe in previous years where we had these conversations about concerns on the back end, we were having those conversations in the past more about guys who had never done it, and we kind of hoped to see it materialize where they'd start. At least now you have some candidates who have done it before. They've done it at a high level before. They just haven't done it, and it hasn't clicked in this configuration with this defense yet, but we have seen them do it. I've seen Aiden Garnes do it elsewhere. I've seen Garnett Hollis do it in the Big Ten. I haven't seen them do it here yet. That doesn't mean they can't. Now, take Garnett Hollis, for instance, Owen, and this plays into it as well. His highest skill is man coverage, even though he didn't demonstrate that against Albany. And he's also trying to master the nuances now of playing in a more zone heavy defense. So you don't just settle right into that. That does take some reps. 2 games in, we have a lot of growing to do. But again, what I fall back on is the competition in that room, whether you want to talk about the other corners. And even I like to see Jacoby Spells get it at the end. He got in late and he was very productive with the reps that he got. What I at least like is the competition in that room, which is something that was lacking in previous years as well. We didn't have the depth. We have TJ Crandall in there, Dantes Fagan in there. We have Jacoby Spells in there. At least there's guys in there to push one another, Owen. And I think that's kind of how you forge a stronger room, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about competition. And friendly competition. I mean, competitive competition, obviously, but we're all teammates here. We're trying to push each other, get each other better. And those lines can kind of be skewed at times, just in the nature of the sport and in the competitiveness. But just really got to buckle down. I mean, there's some catch. You can obviously see there's a little bit of catch up, maybe possibly, with just overall, let's react instead of kind of thinking on the field. But not terrible. It just seems like our secondary is always kind of last to kind of come up.
And I don't know that I've seen a catch made that was better covered than that first play of the second half that McGee made. I mean, in some circumstances, you just kind of tip your cap and say, hey, that's a high level football player, just like what we'll see the rest of the way. They're going to make their share of plays too, but you got to start making some. I mean, you got to settle in, you got to get comfortable. And the last thing, more so probably than any position in sports, a corner has to have a short memory, probably more than any position on either side of the ball. They have to have a short memory because you can be absolutely elite. You can be the best in the game and you're still going to lose some reps. You're still going to lose some snaps. You're going to give up plays if you play that position just by virtue of how much is being asked of you. I would argue there's nothing more difficult to do in sports than cover a skilled athlete in that much space. And every snap they're being asked to do that. Every snap they're being asked to do that. So the last thing you want to do is see a corner not make a play, get beat, and instead of just bouncing back and forget about it, kind of sort of fall into a funk with their body language. I'm not sure, but it almost looked to me, at least during certain spurts of that game, a bit of that was setting in with Garnett Hollis. And that's what he's got to shake loose of. Like, I remember Coach Wallace telling us years ago that they brought in a psychiatrist to do psych evals and tell him, okay, what's the best mentality professionally for each position on a football field? And the one thing I remember about that conversation was the best mentality or psychological profile from a professional side for a cornerback is jet fighter pilot. You have to have an absolutely short memory, or it's disastrous if you're caught up in what just happened instead of looking ahead. And that's what a great corner has to do. I have confidence that we have the talent and the ability and the experience in that room to figure this thing out. And once again, it's worth mentioning once more, you are trying to be vanilla. You're about to go to Acrisure Stadium, face a new look Pitt offense. You don't want to be tipping your hand. You're not just vanilla on the back end, but you're also vanilla with your fronts. You're not doing a lot of creativity in terms of chopping up the front. So maybe some of those times that I was talking about that you were just a whisker away from impacting the passer, maybe with a little more exotic look, like we'll throw a Pitt, you get home on some of those, but that wasn't to be the case. You'd like to be able to stay vanilla and hope that you could win on 3rd and 16 against Albany, talented Albany or not, with their skill guys. And that's what was disappointing about it. You wanted to stay in base defense, win some of those battles, and we weren't winning nearly enough of them.
Agree.
Well said. Absolutely.
And now we got Eddie V banged up. So if you're looking at a rotation, Wes, what do you think? I mean, you're going to have some of these freshmen pressed in. We were only going 6 deep to begin with. Eddie V's on the shelf for a while. We don't know how long, but I'd say you're going to see more out of Asani Redwood. It's great that we have TJ Jackson on campus making the splash that he's made.
No doubt.
But when you look at, I mean, Neil said today that, look, you're going to have kids like Nate Gabriel. He's going to have to play. And probably a couple of those freshmen are going to have to play and be part of the rotation. And the fact that we have guys that have some cross training and position versatility puts you in a better spot to maybe slide some of those guys in. But we were only 6 deep on that rotation already by and large without the freshmen. But now with Eddie V out, how you get to 7 or 8, you're going to have to include some of those freshmen.
Yeah, and that was obviously a big strength of that front last season, and certainly something to keep an eye on here as we move forward. Hey, thanks to our friends at Fortis and our guy Rick Lewis for roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed. You got to visit fortis.us.com. Jed, we got to get to our buddy Big Daddy here in a few minutes, but final Great Dane, final Albany recap.
Let's wrap with this. It wasn't all polished on the offensive side. We put the football on the ground a couple times. One of them we paid for, one of them we didn't. You have to secure the football. You can't be having turnovers in a game like that or a game like any other game. And a lot of people might point to, well, you were 1 for 6 on third down. Okay, well, let's lend some perspective here. We were 1 for 6 on third down against Albany. We were 4 for 14 on third down against Penn State. Think of it more globally. So many times, we've discussed this on this podcast ad nauseum, so many times Neil Brown sees 3rd and 6 as 4th and 2. He's not necessarily trying to get it off. You do, great. But if you don't, he knows he's going to roll the dice anyway. So here are the 6 situations that on the stat sheet are listed 1 for 6 on third down. Sounds like 5 failures against Albany, doesn't it? The first one of the game, 3rd and 3, we actually converted it. Outright successful conversion. The second one, 3rd and 9, we threw the ball and picked up 8. Converted on 4th and 1. Kept moving the sticks. We didn't get stopped by it. The third one was a true stop. Incomplete on 3rd and 4, we punted. Okay. The fourth one, 3rd and 14. Garrett ran the football for 13 yards, creating 4th and 1, which we converted. Stayed alive. The drive moved on. The next one, 3rd and 6. We ran the ball for 2 yards. Quirky little, I didn't realize this is how the stats go, but this is the one where Jaheim ran the ball for 2 yards on 3rd and 6. It's considered a failed third down, even with the horse collar penalty. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Oh, they're calling that dead ball. See, I was just under the assumption that the penalty would be part and parcel of the play, but they consider that a failed third down, even though the penalty moved it forward. So we ended up scoring on that drive. And then finally, there was a 3rd and 6. We ran for 5 yards, set up a 4th and 1. We converted that. So that's 5 times in 6 sequences that we succeeded and continue to move the football. No, I'm not going to go through all 14 with Penn State, but suffice to say, of the 14 similar situations against Penn State that the stat sheet says we were 4 of 14, we were actually 7 of 14. And outside of the 7 of 14, we also managed points on 2 field goals with 2 of the other 7. So the stat line would tell you right now we're 15th in the Big 12 at 26% success on third down. That's almost wildly misleading because we approach these third down intermediate situations, especially maybe differently than a lot of teams would.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And I mean, that's one of those, a lot of, tradition, like you've talked about this before. Traditionally, you would look at third down efficiency as a huge indicator, but Neil is not alone in the global football world of people who look at it like that now. That's very, very common. So it's
Wes,
not as much about your third down efficiency. It's more about your possession down efficiency.
That's exactly right. That's the perfect way to say that. It's not even a combination of 3rd and 4th, because a lot of times I'll use the phrase transition downs, which are a combination of 3rd and 4th down. Some people say that. A lot of people say that. But Neil specifically looks at end of possession downs, not a combination of 3rd and 4th, end of possession downs. So I'm glad you pointed that out, because that is exactly the language that Neil uses when he's evaluating this.
Another thank you to our friends at Johnston Equipment for being a presenting sponsor of this episode of ITG. Now at Johnston Equipment, you can get 0% financing for 72 months, plus a free loader on select Coyote models in stock. Visit Johnston Equipment on Route 33 between Weston and Buchanan. I know Big O likes that one. Jed, anything else? Are we good for Big Daddy?
I think we're good. You took care of business. Again, Last year against Duquesne, the ugliness came early. This time, the ugliness kind of was reserved for later in the second quarter, and we separated just in time. In a perfect world, you want to get those 2s and 3s. And like last year, Nico got 43 snaps against Duquesne because it was 35-10 at halftime. This just wasn't that type of game. Credit to Albany. You would ask yourself, Owen, why would a team come in playing a too high defense against a team as formidable in the running game as West Virginia is? Because they want to shorten the game. They want to tempt us and invite us to run the football and help take the air out of the game, which we were kind of to some extent forced to do. So hats off to Albany, good coach team, well-coached team. But 49-14, take it, move on. Hate to see what happened to Eddie V, but relatively healthy coming out of that. That's a bit of a hit. Let's move on. It's Pitt week, and trust me when I say later in the week, I've been knee deep in Pitt tape. We're going to have a ton of fun stuff to talk about with them.
Oh, are we ever? But before we get to those poop eaters, we're going to bring our buddy Big Daddy Mariner in here to talk about these new lights that made their debut at Mountaineer Field, Milan Puskar Stadium on Saturday night. Some other good stories with our friend Sean Mariner when we return in the gun.
There are better-known tractors in the world than Coyote. Ones with bigger names, longer histories, more popular hats, cute toy lines. But there's not a single tractor ever been built that's better equipped to do the dirty work. So we'll just focus on what really matters. Coyote, we dig dirt.
Get 0% financing for up to 84 months with approved credit on select Coyote tractors in stock now at Johnston Equipment. Route 33 between Weston and Buchanan.
Back in the gun here as we roll along our final segment here of this Albany Recap episode. But it's our first segment of the new year. Big Daddy, Season 3, handsome, hubby, man of gold, your friend, my friend, everybody's friend. Sean, what's up, dude? Welcome back to the program.
Howdy, gang. Happy to be here again. We're back.
Looking good.
Well, last we saw him,
co-rush on.
It was who wants to be a Mountaineer.
Yes. Was that the one I won?
Appearance.
Did I win the last one?
We'll say you did. I don't remember.
I can't remember. John beat me in one of them. I know that.
Just to keep you coming back.
Yeah.
Big Daddy, new season of ITG, new season of Big Daddy on ITG. First season for the Mountaineers with these brand new special fancy lights. The light show, the reaction on social media has been awesome. Of course, I only have to miss 2 home games this year, Albany and Iowa State, because of my duties with the Steelers. So I wasn't there Saturday.
Iowa State will be a night game.
Those will be the only 2 night games, and I'll end up missing them both. That's exactly how that's going to work. Yeah, jokes on me. But just from your vantage point of getting to kind of be a part of that, operate that, hit those buttons for the first time, just walk us through it. What was that like Saturday night?
Well, it's the closest I think I've ever been to actually having a heart attack in real time. So we've got the lights programmed with the videos, the entrance, the kickoff, and that third quarter video that we do to the Journey Stranger Things. But Sweet Caroline, when we met with the lighting folks, they installed everything. We had to have a little training session. It's me and some folks from marketing and the operations folks, and we were talking with a guy, and he was just kind of telling us stories, how we do this, how we do that. And he was saying, and a lot of teams do things differently. So, whatever you're thinking, and, we know some folks at North Carolina State, we know some folks at Wisconsin and Nebraska and Alabama. So we've reached out to them to see how they do things. So we had stuff in our head. And he said, the Red Sox, baseball doesn't really, the MLB doesn't even really let them use lights like this. Cause obviously it's a baseball game. The innings, it's short in between innings. They don't really have time to do anything. But it's funny, the Red Sox, their song Sweet Caroline, and the only thing they do for their whole light show is they've got something that goes bump, bump, bump. And we didn't even let the guy finish. And we just said, send it right now. Email your tech people, put it on, send it right now. And 24 hours later, there it was. It was wild. But the problem with it is, if like I said, the videos are synced, right? So I can press a button, and in 4 seconds, the lights in the video sync, play. It's beautiful. Sweet Caroline is live, so I can't press the button 4 seconds ahead of time and pray to God that it times out. So it's me with my hand shaking over the button on the iPad, waiting for Sweet Caroline and pressing it and just praying that I did it at the right time so that it flashes in rhythm.
So you manually were the one making those lights blink at that moment, and that
yes,
dude
with a tremor like my grandpap when he was
that
90
is
with
incredible.
Parkinson's.
I'm telling you right now that
like
no
me
pun intended,
hungover after drinking 18 beers in the
Just
Blue Lodge,
hydrate me,
trying to order
please.
my sheets schmuffin the next morning.
Just touch
guys,
screen.
the stadium was insane when that very thing happened. When
Well, we
that
didn't tell
part
anybody.
happened,
That was our big thing. Like, obviously, we wouldn't want to tell anybody that we're doing Sweet Caroline, but then we didn't tell anybody about the lighting effect that goes with it because we wanted that to be a little pop. And it seemed like it popped the first time I hit it, but again, my heart is 3,000 over 72 BPM as I'm just trying to press that at the right time.
wow. So
Your
if you have
blood
the belt
pressure
at the
is through the
wrong
roof.
time, all of a sudden, Sweet Caroline screwed up, huh?
Yeah. Oh, it would have been. Oh, it would have been on me so hard. We were over there practicing all week. Thursday night, the night before, me and Noah from marketing were over there for a straight hour, and I just did it for almost 30 minutes straight, playing the song over and over again, trying to light it up.
Well, you got to see this.
Fantastic.
It's you got to see this.
I'm
It's a
really,
whole
really-
different animal.
I'm super excited, that we have them. Like, it's like when they told us over the summer we're getting them, I'm like, all right, I better not screw this up. But we've got to play with them a good bit, and I've seen them in stadium and from up where I am in the press box at second floor. It looks great, but I'm not getting, I'm almost at the same level as the lights, so I can just see what's happening without seeing what's going on. And then when they posted the video, and I've seen obviously fan videos and friends and stuff, I'm like, wow, this looks really, really, really cool.
It's a whole nother element to the game experience. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, and I got lucky too. So we go into one of the first timeouts. We're starting to get dark, and we had first responders on the field. And I radioed our marketing guy. I said, "Hey Noah, we have a red, white, and blue setting." He goes, hit it now, go now." And I pressed it, and it went red, white, and blue. And that was like the first everybody kind of looked around, and there was enough light where everybody could still see. So I was like, okay, we might be all right here.
It was rehearsed. That was impromptu.
No, that one was on the fly, where he was like, "Yes, great call. I forgot we had it." And I was like, "I did too. That's why I wanted to check with you."
That's
awesome. So that's what I wanted to ask you. What capabilities does this thing have to stretch to that we haven't seen or won't see for a while, or
We've got a few other things programmed in that we can do, just as far as like blue gold running lights. Like we can make the lights. They gave us presets where we can touch things and kind of make it go. Like when we do country roads at the end, that's a video that's set with blue and gold at 100 beats per minute, even though country roads isn't quite that. We wanted to do one at like 100, 150, and 200. So like, depending on what song I play, I can press it, and it should at least be slightly in rhythm with the lights. And then otherwise, just kind of flashing effects and everything. So yeah, it was deep. It was a summer project. It was a summer project.
Listen,
you got to see this.
What kind of pull do you have, Big Daddy, to make sure that Iowa State isn't the only other night game?
Well, now, so Wes, you said it earlier, the weekends of Iowa State and Kansas State, okay? Those Sundays, I either have a family photo shoot back in Wheeling on one Sunday, or I have to go back and watch my kids with Pappy while my wife and mother-in-law potentially go to Christmas in the woods. So either one of those will be a night game if it means I have to get up early and drive back home. So just we'll
Iowa State.
Both of us
K-State works with me.
But if Iowa State and you and I overlap, it's going to be Iowa State.
So let me ask you this, Big Daddy. I tweeted Ren today. I don't know if you saw what Nebraska did with Thunderstruck.
We know those guys. It's great.
Okay, here's my question. Walk me through what that might look like in terms of a Mountaineer entrance, but instead of Thunderstruck, it's Charles Wesley Godwin Q Country Roads.
So here, this is the one kind of hiccup with those, is that in order to do the light show for that, we had to get this company our materials in the first week of June. So they took like the full summer to build out stuff.
It'd be a next year thing.
I don't know what the capabilities are above my pay grade. I am just the tubby one that presses the buttons and will get yelled at if anything gets screwed up. So I don't know what those capabilities are, but I know we had to have music and everything done by June so we could send it out. Now the other stuff we got to put a list together of, hey, we would like, what do we think we could do? We would like to see blue gold this, blue gold that, highlight, low light, because that was before the Big 12 put out the statute that, anytime there's players on the field, so anytime, even if we're in a timeout, like a end of break, end of quarter, or anything like that. If there are athletes on the field, we can't go pitch black. So that's why you see even like the end of the third quarter, the lights go low, but there's always a light
Which
element.
that be honest with, that's preferable. I think that's preferable.
Yes,
And you know, I
100%.
was asking myself, how do you possibly improve on the greatest tradition in college sports, and that's country roads after a win? And what would make it better? We don't really have a signature entrance song, video, moment. That's why I was thinking bookend it. You now have an intro with cue country roads to start the game, and with a victory, you end it with country roads. Now it truly is beginning to end the greatest tradition in all of college sports. I just thought it would be perfect for that reason.
You tweeted the right guy, because if he likes it, he'll make me try to figure out something for it. So you're doing the right thing.
All right, Sean, I got to ask you, because I know you've seen the tweets. I've seen the tweets. What happened to the NWO video?
Well, now that was a special for last year that was created for last year. If you've noticed, I played a lot of wrestling themes last week. I've got some more in the bag. I've got some big moment ones. We don't want to do the same thing too much, but now seeing the reaction and the tweets and everything, I think Chris O and I are going to have to go back to the drawing table and maybe discuss and converse and figure out what else we might be able to do, because the overlap between WVU fans and wrestling marks, myself included, is quite high.
Certainly is. It certainly is. That's good. That's good. Listen, sometimes I get what you're saying. Like, there's a balance of, you don't want to ruin a good thing. But sometimes you got to do the other side of that balance is listening to the people and the pulse of the fan base.
And we're never going to win, right? Like we've talked about wrestling stuff forever. I did a whole feature on Chase Barrett back in the day where we did a 2-minute DX video. I recreated the entrance video with him with the song and everything like that. And when we came out with the NWO video last year, Blaine Scott, Rex Sunahara, and some of those other guys lit me up. How come we never did this when I was here? You knew we were wrestling fans. We never did anything like this when I was in school. Like, I didn't do it. I just pressed play. The other guy came up with it. We love it. We're sorry.
You damned if you do, damned if you don't, right?
No win, but I get it. I'm in.
Speaking of Chris O, tell him to not leave his credentials in the men's room again. The story gets crazier. Guess who brought it out asking, whose are these? The guy, true story, the guy brought it out saying, hey, who's Chris Ostian? It was the guy that conducted CPR trying to resuscitate Whitey Bulger when he was murdered at Hazleton Prison. That's who brought it out of the it's true story. But we finally tracked Chris O down.
I don't know if that's the right guy you want to be on the bad side.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he has a heck of a story to tell. I'm not telling it here, but it's a lively story.
Walked into our booth just dangling it, like, yes, sir, thank you. That's him right there, not me.
There you go. We directed him that way.
Oh gosh. So. What else we got for you? I guess we haven't talked to you since McAfee and Big Noon Kickoff and all of that either, correct? Just what was that whole weekend like for you?
So wasn't initially going to do anything with it. You know, obviously that was a gigantic weekend. We had a million things going on, and as I was driving over to the football stadium, it was like 10:30 that Friday, and I was like, you know what, let me go poke my head up there and just see how bad it is. And I pulled up right next to the Life Sciences, and two of the cops that were there, I started talking with them for a minute, like, hey, I'm going to try and shoot something. Where do you think I should park? And they're like, oh man, I don't know. And I was like, yeah, I'm only going to be here for like a half hour. So I'll go figure something out. And he went, wait, half hour? I was like, yeah. And he just like, come here. And they gave me a spot right in there. So I ended up going in. I helped facilities. I was handing out waters. I was helping like the McAfee guys move stuff, set stuff up. They used our set for the show. Oh, and big time me coming out because Pat White was with him again. He didn't.
Wow, dude.
But he did get the ITG shout out as soon as he got on stage. So things worked out, I guess, in the end.
Wow, dude.
It was wild over there. Oh, probably has a lot more stories because he got to be front and center for all of it. But dude,
he shared some good ones last week.
When you came out of Life Sciences and saw everybody during that walkout, was that not nuts? Oh,
it was insane, dude. I mean, it was absolutely pandemonium. I was telling Pat, I'm like, dude, this is unlike anything that we've been a part of here before. Obviously, we've been a part of big things, but something like this that was never really done there before. super
It was
cool,
a
man. I mean,
WVU game day. Like it was like they let
I know
McAfee have his
yeah.
own game day show, but just about
Described it best,
WVU.
or Wes
it
was
was
saying that.
sick,
Yeah.
dude. It was. It really was. It was awesome to be a part of it. Pat, what a guy. I mean, just so much love for everything that he's doing, and I mean the giving back. The dude dropped over $1 million just that day. So kudos to him and everything that he does, and I wish him the best of success going forward, because that's just, you can't put a price tag really on him being there, because it just says so much about tradition in the program's history and stuff, and just like, that's a guy who really doesn't need to come back and do anything for you guys, but takes his time to come back and just put on an electrifying show, man. I mean, there was a buzz in the air, and I'm not talking about what I had the night before either. It was something special.
Wants to come back. That's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
wants to come back now. It was crazy. I got so many texts that day. I took a snap, posted some stuff on Instagram just about how crazy it was. And all my buddies are texting me. And I'm texting Meg Bolger, and I got crazy emotional with Meg. She just had another daughter, and our kids are now about the same age. And she and I were texting, and we're just like, I think part of the reason why I was so emotional was like, these were our guys. I'm old now. I understand that. But like, these were our guys. You know what I mean? Oh, it was you. It was Pat. It was Pat. It was Colby. Like, those were our guys. We were there together. And now
Yeah.
you guys are back with these gigantic success stories. And it just like, it felt like 20 years ago.
It did.
But just with a whole new group of people. And it
Yeah.
had me just crazy emotional that day. It was wild.
Yeah. And a lot of those people that were there, they were all college students. So it's not like, I mean, there was a mix for sure, but it wasn't like there was just a bunch of old heads there.
Those people were like 5 when you were playing for the Mountaineers.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you had a bunch of like new generation kids who like knew. So that's kudos to the parents too, because I mean, for bringing us along together on that whole journey with their families. So I'm telling you, it made the hair stand up on your arms. I mean, it was that awesome.
And Sean, it's funny how you talk about getting emotional too, because my sister is a junior at WVU now. My brother-in-law, my wife is the oldest of 4. Her youngest sibling is a sophomore at WVU right now. And so they're sending me pictures and videos, and all those memories are flooding back of, when we got to do that, those types of things when we were in school, waiting outside and camping for basketball games, and LSU and game day coming to town and everything.
Walking to go, the facilities guys need to get more water for the kids in the front row for some of Pat's guys. And I'm walking over to get 2, they have just pallets of water. And as I'm walking, I turned into the 60-year-old man, like, in my day, my sophomore year, this is where I saw Kanye West perform, right here on this
Lupe Fiasco did Fall Fest right here.
I walked through the crowd during Trapped, and then it was just me up front with Kanye, and they're like, "Okay, Grandma, that's great. Let's go get that." That was there 20 years ago. We were blackout. I bonged 2 Mad Dog. I went and I saw Kanye right here. That's where it happened. Like,
Kanye and Lupe Fiasco just pushing across the stage.
Better believe it.
Memories. All right. Well, as we start to wrap this up, I do have a very serious question. This might make Jed and Sean emotional.
Oh, boy.
Iconic is the wrong word to use because you can't beat Star Wars. But better James Earl Jones role, Darth Vader or Mufasa?
If we're going role, I'm going to go Mufasa, because that was him from the beginning. He helped craft it. He helped do it. Darth Vader, as you know, is another guy.
You can't get more iconic. I don't know how to. Is that the right way to frame that? Because if I say what's the more iconic, it's Darth Vader. Like, Darth Vader is perhaps the most iconic character in pop culture history.
But I think the better character might be Mufasa, just because that was James Earl Jones from beginning to end. The character of Darth Vader is physically portrayed by another, but obviously the voice is what carries that for most of us.
I can't objectively answer that. I mean, outside of my mom and my dad, that was the voice of my childhood. I can't objectively answer that.
It's weird.
I really can't.
A bunch of people were posting the Field of Dreams clip, and obviously that's an incredible scene for him. But as I'm watching that, there's one split-second thing he does in The Sandlot that just kept popping into my head. When they meet him at the very end, and he's blind, right? So he's got the glasses on, and he just goes, they hated that. And that's all I heard in my head watching that scene the whole time, was just him talking about crowding the plate in The Sandlot, because that's the first movie I ever saw him in.
Well, I don't know if you guys have heard this, you probably have, but the actor, I use that term loosely, inside the Darth Vader costume was David Prowse. He was a British actor because of his height. All right. And he was under the false assumption during filming that he would voice this. And so you can actually look up the clips of this strange British guy with his British accent.
Yep.
Oh,
you know,
wow.
where are the hidden plans? Where are the hidden plans? You know.
Yeah.
And he thought that was going to be the voice of evil.
Luke, I am your father, mate.
I'm your father. And Darth Vader's
Oi,
a
Luke,
cockney from London's East End.
Luke, lad. Oi, Luke, lad. I'm your
But
father.
I know.
That's
I
the
know
guy.
you-
That's the one guy that ever walked the earth that is disappointed that David Prowse voiced Darth Vader. That James Earl Jones voiced Darth Vader as David Prowse.
I know it's impossible, but looking back, is there a bigger letdown in the world than hearing that voice, hearing it the entire time, seeing the power, hearing the voice, and then in Return of the Jedi, that helmet pops off and it's just
Sebastian
Shaw
no.
underneath. Yeah, Sebastian Shaw. You got a tease in The Empire Strikes Back when he had the helmet off and the officer came in. You saw it behind. You're like,
yeah,
Obi-Wan really did do a number on it.
He's going to be powerful, and then they pop it at the very end. You're like, oh.
But I'm telling you, what is that character? Because it's without question. There's not even a distant second. There's not even a close second. It is the most powerful villain in cinematic history. But the question is, how much of that can directly be attributed to James Earl Jones? A significant portion.
I would say, if not 99.99%, yes.
Yeah.
Oh man.
You didn't have to. You didn't have to see him to. I mean, the voice is I mean, it's unrecognizable. I mean, you cannot.
Absolutely.
I mean, anytime you hear it, you know exactly what's going on.
Just so you guys know, that scene in Empire where you get the tease and the helmets coming down. Yeah. That's how I put my hair on every morning. That same way.
You have hair to put on. I don't.
And it just like that.
I'll put it to you like this, Big Daddy. I'm so into his voice as Darth Vader. I even loved the "Be careful not to choke on your aspirations" director Krennic. I even love that. So people call it too cheesy. No, I'm all in. I'm all in.
James Earl Jones could not do a cheesy line does not exist when it comes from.
That's true. That's a good way of putting that.
I just want you guys to know, for the rest of the night, for the next 2 hours or so until I go to bed or whatever, I'm just going to be walking around. Luke, mate, I'm your father.
Costa.
Luke,
you blimey bastard, you're my son.
My son's the one that told me about James Earl Jones, and of course he's a fan too. And it just, as soon as he told me, it hit me, and I was like, oh, that's one more piece of my childhood. That's a pretty prominent piece. That he was a talented, a guy from Mississippi that grew up with a stutter, and it just shows that that's a very American story. James Earl Jones. He is was such a talented guy. Rest in peace. What a talented guy. Giant.
No doubt.
Shelby and I have had this conversation a few times too. Like, as obviously huge Tom Petty guy. That one just absolutely broke my heart. And Jed, like you said, pieces of my childhood are starting to fall off. There are 3 remaining actors that are like, when they go, I'm going to be apoplectic, and it is going to bother me for quite a while.
Okay, hold on.
Jeff Bridges.
Okay, I knew. John Goldblum.
Goodman,
sorry. I just combined Jeff Goldblum and John.
You did.
Goodman.
You did.
Very interesting combination.
I like that.
Yeah.
And that'd be a hell of an actor.
John Goodman really, really hurt me. And then Kurt Russell is just gonna those 3 together.
Mine's Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
I will be
inconsolable.
We've
got time.
I got some time.
You know who mine is, and it's not even an actor. Owen, you go first. Who you got? Who's going to crush you? It's not even an actor, but take somebody in the entertainment industry. You got one, Owen?
Honestly, I'd have to say with Wes, because I mean, Jim Carrey is part of my persona.
Yes.
He is like what I mean.
Ace Ventura. Ace
Oh, and
Ventura.
if you can take us
man.
inside of your head, how many times a day do you do the dolphin conversation from the beginning of Ace Ventura? Because I could do it for you. I could do it for you right now verbatim.
Why do you want to
And you
talk to
can
the
quote
dolphin?
him.
Do you know him? Do you call him at home?
Come at home. I say to the dolphin,
Lordy,
yeah. And he is
But
up
to
on
me,
the
Dumb and Dumber is the greatest, single greatest Jim Carrey movie there is. Period.
Tell me,
That's to
nobody,
me.
no person will ever have a run of Dumb and Dumber, The Mask, and Ace Ventura in 1 year. In 1 year,
Tough.
we'll never
That's
see
tough.
something. Never see something
That's
like that
tough.
again.
I'm gonna go with mine.
Okay,
But I
yeah,
would
it's
also
not even
say
close.
the same
It's-
thing with what you were saying. I'd have to say
he had it. He lost it.
Yeah, they lost it.
Jed, give us yours.
man.
We'll come back to him.
it will come back to me. Hold on. It will come back to me. Go, Jed.
He's gonna Google it. George Lucas. Not even close.
Wow, there you go.
I will be a fragile human being when that happens. That's I don't even think about it.
Now, Jed, I don't want to break you down, but I tell you what, I almost I'm upset about James Earl Jones. It's very sad, but 93. We can all understand. But the tweet I saw today, did you see Mark Hamill's tweet?
Yeah, I did.
Which one?
Mark Hamill tweeted "R.I.P. Dad," and that one almost.
I got retweeted by Mark Hamill like years ago, and that
Sorry,
was,
Jeff Bridges.
Put that in my resume. Jeff Bridges.
That's my guy.
Yeah,
I'm telling you.
R.I.P. Dad.
Jeff
Bridges. That's
Big
how
Lebowski.
That got me.
Probably one of my most favorite movies ever.
It's like Dan Connor was my dad. Like we grew up a Roseanne family. My dad was Dan Connor. Like Big Mike and John Goodman were the same. And then when I discovered Big Lebowski, I was like, these are my North Stars. That's all I need for the rest of my life.
There's
And then
some
you
tough
add in
ones.
Steve Buscemi with that. I mean,
come on.
Every time one of these guys trends on Twitter, you're scared.
Oh, like
I mean, we all go through it,
No doubt.
right? You hate to see him trending, and unfortunately, I'm sure James Earl Jones was trending, and that happened to be the one. I didn't see that. Like I said, my kid told me, but
yeah,
that's a tough one. That is a tough one, guys. But you guys put some giants out there too. Those are some good names that you just fed us there.
93, James Earl Jones. That's a life well lived for sure.
A life well lived.
Let us know in the YouTube comments who your person that you have no personal relationship with that you'll be a wreck when they inevitably pass away one day, because we all inevitably pass away one day.
Of course, like you take like Harrison Ford, you don't have to worry about it. He's immortal. He's never gonna. We all know this. He's never gonna go anywhere.
That's why
he'll be fine.
That's why I didn't say Bruce Springsteen, because Bruce Springsteen's going to live 700 more years. So I don't have to worry. I don't have to worry about that.
We can't even go there. But, yeah.
And speaking of comments and things like that, also I wanted to make sure to mention our Big 12 Weekly Pick'em is back. So if you go to our Twitter page, our X page, In the Gun Podcast, it's pinned at the very top. You can just make your 4 picks every week. Beer Truck of the Week, Signal Caller of the Week, Offense of the Week, Defense of the Week. And if you win, if you do well, you get some shout-outs from us. And maybe even, I don't know, maybe even an autograph from Owen will show up in your mailbox or something one day. You never know. Not to put Owen on the spot there.
Well, Jed's got him now, so I mean, there's that you will
it's
get
out of your
that.
hands.
I got a stash of them. Yeah,
it's
I got a stash of
it's not the
cards.
stage anymore where it's like label printed and you're looking at it for 5 days.
Yeah,
like labels
like,
printed. Okay, no, it's been delivered.
Well, apologies to Jake Botel, our
his
friend,
behalf.
our
Yeah,
friend down under.
Yeah.
Our buddy in Australia.
Did we finally get him
listener.
something? Because he's probably wanting to kill
Did we were going to remortgage the house to send something to Australia. I mean, what did you take that cost to send?
Jake, his name's Jake,
yes,
right?
and we couldn't find an affordable way to do it. You know, he's the first one who won all 4 last year.
I have a way of getting it there. We'll discuss after the show, but
that's product placement from wearing the shirt too.
That will do it for this edition of ITG. Yes. But obviously, it's a big week. It's Pit Week. It's Brawl Week. We'll be back in just a couple days with the preview. We will have, obviously, Phil Steele on Friday as well, too, as it's a big week for the Mountaineers here, obviously. And for me and my personal pride in the jabronis that I have to spend 365 days a year around up here. But the one thing that we ask of you before we get out of here is to be an ear. And tell an ear.
Am I allowed?
You sure can. You sure
can.
You're
allowed.
In fact,
your own intro. Of course you're allowed.
Yeah, I'd be offended if you didn't at this point. Be an ear and tell an ear about your
like that.
new favorite, it's very sensual, your new favorite WVU football podcast. For Big Daddy Mariner, for the Beer Truck Big O, and for the Signal Caller Jet Drenning, a thank you to our producer / co-host Skylar Callahan as well, too, for putting this all together. I'm Wes Euler. Take care, beat Pitt, and you've been in the gun.
ITG.
The fun doesn't have to stop here.
Be sure to hit subscribe and never miss an episode.
If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback,
be sure to follow us on X at In the Gun Podcast.
Join us again next time.
Until then,
tell an ear to tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast.
This mission is over. It's over.